Senate. I chair the Central Committee in Franklin County. My partner, Doug Price, who chairs the Executive Committee, would be here, but he had business downtown, other party business. As is often true, he and I split up this afternoon, and I volunteered to return to the old hometown. Yes, I am a Raider. We are blessed in Central Ohio. We have a great governor.
Amen.
We have one outstanding United States Senator. We have wonderful local government officials. We're going to add to our blessings in November by electing a great president and vice president, aren't we? One of the other things that makes us blessed here in Central Ohio is that for the third presidential election out of the last 4, we are going to be the most important citizens of this country when it comes to choosing the leader of the free world. We are going to say more here in Central Ohio about whether there's 4 more years of failure or whether we are going to believe again in America than anyone else in this country. It comes down to us. But one thing I know about Central Ohioans, especially Central Ohio conservatives, we're going to deliver. Now, Central Ohio is more than Franklin County. We have great Romney organizations arising throughout Central Ohio right now. One of the best is out in Licking County. With us today are Les Davies and Brian Still. They are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invoke the blessing of the Almighty on today's proceeding. They do have a really vibrant, dynamic Romney-Ryan organization in Licking County, and I know that Les really has no alternative because he does not want to let cousin Ann Romney down.
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the family, we are amazed at the volunteers that show up to this. I mean, I love working for this campaign. There's nothing as much fun as working for this campaign is, but I am absolutely in awe of all of you because you guys are the ones that really make this work. It's your phone calls, your door knocking, and all your efforts that really, really make this work. We are in awe of you. Thank you very much. We'd like to take just a minute and bow our heads and thank our Father in heaven. Our Father in heaven, we're so grateful today to be gathered here together at this great event. Father, our country is at a crossroads. We know that this has been a blessed country, a country of thy making, and we pray, Father, that we will be able to sustain it, and that we'll be able to build it up again to the country that it once was. We are afraid, Father, for the direction that we have taken, and we pray that we will have the courage to turn this around. Help our efforts and bless them, that they will be productive. Bless us, Father, that we will be able to claim victory in the fall. Bless our leaders, that they will be inspired. Bless our leaders, that they will be able to listen to thy promptings and do thy will. We turn this time over to thee, Father, to thy care and keeping, in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Thank you. I want to bring somebody up here to do our Pledge of Allegiance. Brian. Brian is a life scout in the Boy Scouts. He also just finished his tour with the All Ohio State Fair Youth Choir. Did I get that right? Oh, yeah. All right. Brian will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. There's our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
mentioned earlier that we are fortunate to have great local leadership in the eastern part of central Ohio. One of the outstanding mayors in the state of Ohio is with us today. We're standing in his town. Thanks, Mayor, for the opportunity to be here. Brad McLeod has served with great distinction as Reynoldsburg's mayor during the course of the last 5 years. He was recently re-elected in the absence of opposition. Brad is not only an outstanding civic leader, but he really is one of the leaders of the Republican movement in Franklin County. When we need a tough job done at the Franklin County Party, we often turn to Brad McLeod to do it. Reynoldsburg is well served by its outstanding mayor, Brad McLeod.
Thank you, Brad. Look at this crowd. Look at this wonderful facility, but look at this crowd who came out with all the time constraints that everybody's under. Everybody's got a child in soccer, a commitment at church, at Kiwanis, and yet all these people turned out. That is testimony that people in this country are hungry for two things, and that is truth and leadership.
Yeah.
I see a lot of familiar faces. Faces that I've campaigned with, who've campaigned with me, who believe in God and country and the fundamental principles of the Republican Party, and we have in front of us a real opportunity to make meaningful change in November. We have to keep this place busy, but together we can do it. Thank you for having me.
Governor Romney, when he becomes President Romney, is going to need a lot of help. He'll need help in the Congress. They'll need help in state legislatures around the United States. You have here in Reynoldsburg a member of your city council who is our party's nominee for the Ohio House. This district, the single most competitive district of the 99 in the state of Ohio. This district could go either way by the math, but I know this one's going to go into the Republican column because of the quality of our candidate. Nathan Byrd is exactly the kind of man that we want serving in government these days. He's decent, he's honest, he's conservative. Could not be more proud of our candidate in this House district, Nathan Byrd.
It is such an honor to be here today with Senator Portman and the rest of our team, and especially with all of you. In 2005, I was hanging out at home one day, and I was doing something that policy wonks and political junkies often do. I was watching C-SPAN. And between programs, they said, coming up next, Governor of Massachusetts, Republican Mitt Romney, is going to be addressing a crowd in South Carolina. I didn't know much about him that time. I'd recognized the name, but I thought, well, let's see what this governor's all about. And he gave an exceptional speech that night, just exceptional. And I told my wife, who's over there, I told her the next day, I said, you know, I think this governor from Massachusetts might be president someday. And I think that day's coming up very, very soon. And so it is just very exciting to be part of this ticket, and it's very exciting to see all of you here tonight. As Brad mentioned, I am running in the most competitive House race in the entire state of Ohio. Yesterday, my campaign manager and I were out knocking on doors in the southern part of the district, and my manager's phone rang, and it was a British reporter from the BBC who was in Ohio. And he said, hey, do you mind if we come tag along with you the rest of the afternoon? You don't normally get opportunities to have foreign reporters hang out with you on the trail, so we said, sure, come on down. And when we met up with them, I asked, I said, what prompted you to want to spend the afternoon with this campaign? And they told me that they wanted to get a feel for what grassroots politics is like in the most important political state in the nation. Very true. And they said that they heard that I was running in the most hotly contested district in the state of Ohio. And so it is a tough race, but we're going to be victorious. The feedback we're getting from voters every day is incredibly encouraging. And so I hope that as you're here working very hard for Governor Romney, you'll also support myself and Chris and the rest of the Republican team this year, because we are ready, willing, and able to apply common sense conservative principles to make sure that we address the problems facing our state and facing our nation. So let's all roll up our sleeves. Let's pack this place every day and every night so that we can have the joy of watching the media on November 6th announce that Ohio's gone for Romney and the White House has gone for Romney.
Spoke a moment ago about how Governor Romney, when he's President Romney, will need the support of the Congress. There is a new congressional district here in Franklin County. It's one of a configuration we haven't seen before. And yes, friends, it is a heavily Democratic district. At the same time, we wanted to have a strong conservative messenger as our party's candidate in that newly created 3rd Congressional District, which is much of the city of Columbus, running in a swath east and including Reynoldsburg. Doug and I surveyed the landscape. We looked at elected Republicans now serving in the 3rd Congressional District. There was one we settled on as being an especially capable messenger for our cause in the newly created Congressional District. I still remember standing in the office, calling Reynoldsburg City Council member Chris Long, putting the proposition to him. He didn't ask about the odds. He didn't ask about the numbers. When the party called, he responded with the 2 most beautiful words in the English language: "Yes, Chairman." We are very proud of our candidate for Congress in this district, Chris Long.
And the phone call after it, when I called my wife Sandy and said, "Guess what I'm doing?" She said, "What?" Evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Brad mentioned, I'm an elected official here in the city of Reynoldsburg. But I can tell you what, I mean, this is humbling in of itself. And this is evident of what we're currently seeing now throughout the 3rd Congressional District. Many of you may have heard the dispatch report or seen it along the lines that the 3rd Congressional is made up of Columbus, Bexley, Whitehall, Reynoldsburg. But in all actuality, the 3rd Congressional District is made up of 29 separate communities. A lot of them very similar to the city of Reynoldsburg, a lot of them a lot smaller, but we are the 2nd largest voter bloc in the Congressional 3rd. So for me to see this many people in the city of Reynoldsburg and the surrounding communities that are willing to come out and stand with us and fight for the conservative values that we are all longing to have brought back into our government, this is incredibly warming, and I'm incredibly proud to be able to stand here. And as many of you know, the number one issue that we need to be dealing with here is getting America back to work. You know, our president has been so focused on attempting to take 1/6 of our national economy and turn it over to the federal government that they have paid absolutely no attention to the unemployed worker. In June, we had a 20% increase in individuals that were applying for disability insurance. This is due to individuals who are currently coming off of the unemployment rolls and they're turning as a last resort to disability. This is an absolute disgrace when we consider the overall greatness of this country. We are just absolutely letting our citizens down, and we will focus, number one, on working with the economy and getting it back on track. The number one action, though, before we get into the actual work aspect of it, will be the immediate repeal of Obamacare.
Yay.
When you take a look at the additional tax burden that the Obamacare system and the Affordable Care Act will place upon small businesses, our seniors, and the working families and our young, it's just incredible what they're actually talking about doing. It's an absolute travesty as far as bringing it before the people itself. Energy independence is another area that we need to take a close look at. When you consider the overall square mileage as far as federal lands, only 98% of them are currently closed, and only 2% of them are currently open. Any and all exploration and drilling and manufacturing that are currently working in the oil and the energy industry is being done on private property.
Open and war.
You got it. The old saying goes, drill, drill, drill. Yeah. We have a responsibility to utilize the resources that have been placed before us. It's not only an economic issue, it's a safety issue and a security issue. Many of the countries that we rely upon for our energy needs at times are not that friendly to us. So that's what I mean by the fact that it's a safety issue. So I hope that everybody will continue to come out and support this incredible center. We're going to go ahead and move forward. We're flying low and we're flying fast. We're getting an incredible response from the communities within the Congressional 3rd. I don't believe it's that close. The numbers we take a look in the 2012 primary showed the margin between Democrat to Republican is only 3.9%. This district is winnable. And I believe that we're going to deliver a Republican to the United States Congress in the Ohio 3rd Congressional District in November. along with the continued momentum of the volunteers and the American public, we're going to deliver Josh Mandel to the Senate and elect Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan to the President and Vice President of the United States and restore the integrity of this country. Thank you.
I now have the pleasure of introducing two Republican women from Reynoldsburg. The first is my mother, Marva Lee, right over here. Always introduce your mom. And the other is a real giant of Ohio Republican politics. She has served as a state senator. She has served as a county prosecutor. She has served as the auditor of our state. She has served as Ohio's Attorney General. Betty Montgomery, who does in fact live in Reynoldsburg, we will always claim her as one of our own. Betty Montgomery has had one of the most distinguished careers of anyone in the history of Ohio politics. She earned that opportunity. In Ohio politics, it's now said that Montgomery is a good political name. Well, it is. That's because Betty made it a good political name. Betty is a part of the Romney leadership team, and she has the pleasure this afternoon of introducing a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Betty Montgomery.
Thanks. Both Brads. Thank you all for being here. Kate, thanks so much. Kate's in charge of the Victory Center. You'll all look, I know my role, and it's to keep it short because you've been standing long enough. I'm going to introduce to you, I have one comment to make to you. Most of you know that we have lots of things that you can divide us if we want to let it happen. And in fact, President Obama is working very hard to make that happen. But the one thing that unites us is the fact that we know that this country's economy is we are at the fiscal cliff, and this economy is at the tipping point. That unites us. And the other thing that unites us is we're going to elect this team to be our next office holders and the next President of the United States and Vice President of the United States. I see a T-shirt somewhere back in the back that says, "I built my business, Mr. President." We are faced with the choice between two worldviews, and I know that Senator will be talking about that. The choice that we believe in is an America that's working, that's self-reliant, is independent. This is a country that believes in us being able to create our own future. And by the way, we built our own businesses. And if we did build our own business, it would be like saying to the proud mother and father of an honor student that it was the bus driver that gets the credit because they took them to school. And we know that it's you and I individually that are responsible for our future and not government. And we are lucky to have in our senator one of the finest elected officials. And you hear this all the time, all hyperbole in political speech. But let me just tell you, you have one of the leaders, the most important leaders for today and for the future in Rob Portman. Senator.
Betty, thank you very much. I wish my mom and dad could have been here to hear that. My mom would have believed it, my dad would have liked it. Betty, you're so sweet. Thanks for those nice comments. And it's sort of cool to have Betty Montgomery as one of your own, isn't it? She served our state well, and she is truly one of those mentors for a lot of Republicans coming up. I see her constantly with these women from all around the state of Ohio who join her in Washington, D.C. I've met with them, I think, every year for maybe the past 15 years. I don't know how long you've been doing it.
Val
But-
Hoover, who's on the ballot this year as
There's
well.
Val, and Val's a great example, who I've gotten to know through Betty. But there are Republican women all over the state who never thought about getting involved in politics, much less elective office, who are now saying, you know, I can do it too. Betty did it, Joanne did it, and so I really like seeing that. I think it's great for our party, great for our state, and it's really important for our country. Folks, do you agree with me that we cannot afford another 4 years of Barack Obama? We just can't afford it. I think I'm in the right place. And we're not going to let it happen. Listen, in 2 out of the last 3 presidential elections, it was our state of Ohio, the Buckeye State, that determined who was going to be the next president of the United States. In 2000 and in 2004, we did it for the Republican candidate. Are we going to do it again this year? Absolutely. We've got to do it. I appreciate Nathan, his willingness to stand tall. I appreciate Chris's willingness to stand tall and run for office. I appreciate what Mayor Brad does every day to provide good government, which is ultimately how you elect Republicans. You provide good, fair government that has integrity. And Brad, thank you for being out here. You're everywhere. I see you all over, not just Franklin County, but around the state. I appreciate the Davies coming out again. I think I've seen you at about 5 different Mitt Romney rallies now.
I try.
Whether Ann's there or not. We've got the fire in our belly this year, don't we?
Yeah.
We know how important this is. You're here because you care about what happens to your family and your community and our state and our great country. And I appreciate you for that. That's why I'm here. I mean, I'm spending a lot of time, as you know, on the road trying to help Mitt and Paul and trying to be sure that we do change our direction, because if we don't, I fear that for my kids and for their kids, we will not have the America that you and I grew up in. You won't have the opportunity to pass along, as my dad did to me and his parents did to him, a better America. In fact, we're going in the wrong direction. And it's scary. You know, I heard the protesters out here when I came in, and they're saying, you know, don't touch Medicare. Folks, Medicare has a $37 trillion unfunded liability. Medicare is in deep, deep trouble. And this president...
on Medicare?
Well, I don't think so, because if they were, they would know that, you know, we have to save this program for seniors and for future seniors. It's our responsibility, if we're honest about it, to turn this country around before it's too late. Folks, we followed Greece into democracy. Let's not follow them into bankruptcy.
That's right.
And President Obama. So, you know, again, I know why you're here. I wonder whether he doesn't acknowledge the problems or whether he's in denial. You know, he says to the American people, don't worry, the private sector is doing fine. Well, let's talk about the private sector. We're looking at over 8% unemployment for 42 months. This is the worst economic recovery since the Great Depression. It's sad. It's truly sad. So many people don't have a chance. And by the way, unemployment over 8%, it's double-digit unemployment for Hispanics, for African Americans, for young people. For young people here today who are trying to get a job out of college, half of them cannot get a job that matches their degree. Half of them. Is that the kind of America that we want? No. I mean, it's almost like he's saying, don't worry about it, we'll just lower expectations. There's this great thing where Jay Leno was talking about a comment that Joe Biden made. And he said,
Which one?
which one? We'll get into that later. This could be a long night. Are you guys ready? But Joe Biden says, you know, to people who are unemployed, just hang in there. Okay, so this is what Jay Leno says. He says, so a couple of years ago it was hope and change. Now it's just hang in there. You know, instead of hope and change, it's hoping for a change in the economy. I mean, it's unbelievable. We're not going to settle for that, are we? No. America's promise must be kept. We can still be the beacon of hope and opportunity for the rest of the world. We can get this thing back on track, but we've got to have new leadership. We just have to. By the way, despite how bad things are going, you know what President Obama says? These are his words. I should be reelected because my economic policies are working. Okay.
They're doing great for him.
Yep, seems to be doing okay for him, maybe, but not for the rest of us. And let's just talk about that for a minute. And let's not use our standards. Let's not use the way we Republicans might look at it. Let's use his own words. And let's use the actual measurements that he put in place. Because when he ran for office, what did he say? You elect me, I'm going to cut the deficit in half. Folks, they just told us there's another $1 trillion deficit this year. It'll be the 4th year in a row, first time in the history of our country. How's that working? No. Not too well, is it? So he says, you know what? Congress passed this stimulus package, $1 trillion of our tax dollars, and a lot of money borrowed from places like China, $1 trillion to increase the size and the scope of government. That's going to solve our economic problems. What did he promise? He and his economic team said that today unemployment would be 5.6%. Folks, it's 50% higher than that. Is it working? No! Doesn't sound like it's working to me.
Or he doesn't know math.
So the president says, pass this health care law, and he jams it through the Congress without a single Republican vote. Not one. Now, folks, I got to tell you, no one thinks the health care system is perfect in this country. We all think it needs reform. He jammed through a big government approach that was talked about earlier by Chris, and that big government approach, he said, would result in health care costs going down for all of us, for our families. Does it work for you? No. So what did he say? He said, well, if you pass this law, then for every family in America, health care costs will go down. In fact, he said on average, it'll go down $2,500 per family. The Congressional Budget Office, which is this nonpartisan group, you know, it's not Republican or Democrat, they just told us a couple weeks ago, it's another $300 or $400 for every family. Now it's an increase in health care premiums of $2,500. Is it working? No. This thing is not working. And look, you're here today, so I assume that we pretty much agree with each other on this. But we've got to make the calls, and we've got to knock on the doors, and we've got to encourage the people who have not decided yet to take a look at these facts. Again, don't even use your criteria. Use his. Say, look, if you voted for him last time, how's it working? You know, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is the very thing that he said that would happen happening for you and your family? And the answer is going to be no. The good news is that we're doing it in Ohio. We got started a little late. Why? Because we had a Republican primary, and Mitt Romney, frankly, had to spend a lot of money in that primary. President Obama tended to spend it in Ohio. They outspent us about 3-1 until recently. So if you're like me and you come home and turn on the TV and you see another one of these attack ads by Barack Obama, you get a little discouraged sometimes. You think, my gosh, this whole thing is just an attack and attack and attack. They're unfair ads. They're misleading ads. Some are downright false. And we've seen a lot of them in Ohio. They have outspent us campaign to campaign 3-1. And yet, you look at the most recent polls, we're standing tall, aren't we? Yeah. And the good news, we're standing tall. The good news is that now, because we're after the primary, the day after the convention, we'll be able to spend more money that's being raised now, because in the last 3 months, thanks to people all over this country, and by the way, they raised like, you know, 10 million bucks or something from people with $200 or less contributions just in the 3 or 4 days after Paul Ryan was named. I mean, there are people around this country who are really excited, as I am, as we are. But the good news is that we're going to have the resources, and I know that we've got the energy and enthusiasm on our side. We are leading the entire country, folks, in the number of doors being knocked on. Kate can tell you about it. We're about to lead the country in the number of phone calls made now that we start this Victory Center and others all around the state. Reynoldsburg is going to be one of the best. We know it is. We're going to do what we have to do. Back about 3.5 years ago, somebody said something really interesting about politics. He was running for the highest office in the land, and he was complaining about the other side. In this case, the other side was a Republican running negative campaign ads. And he said, when you're out of fresh ideas, you use stale tactics to attack the other person. When you don't have a record to run on, you make the other person unacceptable. You make a big election about small ideas. That was Barack Obama. That's exactly what he's doing. We cannot let him get away with it, folks. We cannot let him get away with it. We're not going to let him get away with it, are we? No. We're going to be sure people understand what the record is. Be sure they understand that he's trying to distract us from that record. Be sure people understand that we have a better way. There is an alternative. We're going to tell people that we've actually got a candidate in Mitt Romney who knows how to create jobs. After all, he started his own business, and by the way, he built it from the ground up. That business created over 100,000 net jobs. I don't know why we're not out there just talking about that all the time. If the Obama administration wants to talk about the fact that Mitt Romney was in the private sector, let them do it. I think people agree with us that it's about time we had people in government who actually understand how to create jobs. Don't you think that's right? That's one of the problems. When the Olympics are mired in scandal and debt, what did the folks do? They turned to this guy from Massachusetts. They said, come out here and help us straighten out this Olympics. It was right after 9/11. Our country was reeling. He turned the thing around. What I love about what he said consistently about that is it wasn't about him. When you hear President Obama talk, you probably hear him say "I" a few times, right? It's all about him. With Mitt Romney, it's not all about him. It's not about ego. It's not about partisanship. It's not about who's up, who's down. It's about how to move this country forward. As a team, and as an American team, we need to get busy on that with Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. Then, he becomes governor of a state called Massachusetts, also known by some people as Taxachusetts, because it's a Democrat state. 85% of the legislators are Democrats. He's a Republican governor. He gets elected. He's got a $3 billion deficit. It's a big deficit for Massachusetts. Working with Democrats in the legislature, he balances that budget while cutting taxes 19 times. Sounds like that's what we need in Washington, D.C., doesn't it? To balance the budget. He leaves office not with a deficit, but with a $2 billion rainy day fund as a surplus. Sounds like that's what we need in Washington, D.C., doesn't it? So, folks, we're just fortunate because we've got someone who's got the experience, he's got the record, and he has the public policy plans to actually turn this thing around. Tax reform, regulatory relief, using our energy resources in the ground, being sure we're expanding trade and making people play by the rules, being sure that we do tackle the deficit and debt, because if we don't, we can't get the economy moving again like we want to. He's actually got a positive plan that's going to work because it's based on the time-honored principles that have made this the greatest country on the face of the earth and the strongest economy the world's ever known. Folks, we've got the opportunity with Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney to turn this thing around, don't we? By the way, pretty good model here in the state of Ohio. There are legislators all over our state, including the ones who represent you, working with our governor, who I think has done a terrific job closing an $8 billion gap, doing it without raising taxes, in fact, by cutting some taxes to make Ohio more business friendly, and we're beginning to see some of the results of that. But as they will tell you, they can't do it with these headwinds coming from Washington. We cannot achieve Ohio's promise, much less America's promise, without changing leadership in Washington. Now, Mitt's going to need a few partners. So, in the United States Senate, we've got 47 Republicans and 53 Democrats. We're pretty close to getting a majority if we can elect a few more Republicans. I really want to be the senior Republican senator. Please, if you haven't already, do everything you can do to help Josh Mandel. He's a great guy. 2 tours of duty in Iraq. As state treasurer, he actually had an upgrade rather than a downgrade they had at the federal level from the credit agencies. He used to win in a district up in Cleveland that's not just a swing district, it's a slightly Democrat district. That sounds familiar, Chris? Going door to door, wearing out the shoe leather. He's a great guy, and he would be a terrific partner for Mitt Romney in Washington. So thanks for helping him as well. And thanks for helping all your congressional candidates. You got a great team here. Stivers and T-Berry are dear friends of mine, and they're guys I work with all the time. Central Ohio is going to be core to this victory. When you think about it, people say, so goes Central Ohio, so goes the state of Ohio. So goes the state of Ohio, so goes the nation. Do you feel the pressure? Okay. We have a responsibility, but we also have the great privilege, don't we, to be able to stand tall for Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan to turn around this country, again, for the sake of our families, our communities, our state, and our country. And I know we're going to do it. Thank you for what you've already done. God bless. Get your hand on there somewhere.
I'll do the play-by-play.
Oh, really, Brad? Brad, be back.
The ribbon is about to be cut.
1, 2, 3.
All right, we're now officially open for business. Thanks for being here tonight, but remember, we didn't move the needle tonight. We were all for Romney when we got here. It's what we do in this place between now and November 6th that will send Mitt Romney to the White House. It's up to us. Let's get the job done.